What is up, you guys, and welcome back to another episode. Today I am talking all about body image and what it really means to love your body. In this episode, I unpack some of the nuances of diet culture and this culture that says that you need to love your body unconditionally no matter what. There are two sides to the coin, and I think that there are benefits and drawbacks to each of them. And so I kind of try to marry the two together so that we can find the middle ground. I talk about boundaries with your body. I talk about what it means to really respect your body. I mean, really respect your body. And I talk about, manifesting the body that you actually really want. So I'm so pumped to be here. I think that this is a topic that we all probably need. So without further ado, welcome to the Get Out of Your Head podcast, where we talk all about the stories that keep you stuck, blocked from manifesting what you really want, and away from your authentic life. I am your host, Sarah, from Spirit, Mind, Body. Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today I am talking about body image, and I'm actually really pumped for this episode because I was watching a YouTube or a video presentation about somebody giving a talk, and they asked the audience to raise their hand if they were completely satisfied with their body image, and almost no one raised their hand. Then they asked the audience who is dissatisfied with their body image, who has some kind of self-hate about their body. And I want to say it was like upwards of 90% of the audience had said something like they would change something about their body. And that's a big number. That's a big deal. And so I'm talking about this because body image is an ego story. It is rooted in this, I need to look like somebody else. I need to do this. I need to follow this diet. I need to do all of these things in order to accept myself. And we have society telling us all these different things about our bodies. And it can be very difficult to sort out what's true for me and what's true for somebody else. So that, is the short story of why I'm talking about this today. This can show up in so many ways. It can show up in the way that we fit in our jeans, the way that we look, the way that we turn around in the mirror and we're like looking at our cellulite and we're like, I don't know if I can wear that. It can look like I am not ready to go on vacation, or feeling like our vacation is sabotaged because I don't look good in a bikini. It can look like I need to do these things in order to get the body that I love. And so there's this other part of this that says, just love yourself, right? Just love yourself the way that you are. And I'm going to dive into this, but the problem with that is that for me, at least, it's so fluffy. And what I think it tends to do is when we think that we need to love ourselves and we actually don't, we tend to lie to ourselves about it. Because we want to love ourselves, we want to get into that boat, but how do you do that when you just don't? So I'm going to unpack all of this stuff. So that's what we're talking about today, is all about body image. And hopefully by the end of this, we can get to a place where we have some practical steps that we can implement to try to get us closer to how to actually love your body. With everything, there is a middle way. There's a way to do this that marries both sides of you have to look like this versus you need to love your body. There's a way to match them up in a way that works for you. So from my observation, there are two sides to the way that society portrays health. The first one is diet culture, and the second one is just love yourself. So let's talk about diet culture really quick. Diet culture is basically this idea that we can hate ourselves into having the body that we want. We try to strong arm ourselves into getting the body that we want through exercise and diet, and it's like a very forcible thing that we do. We think that this diet's going to solve our problem, and so we force ourselves to count our calories and go to the gym, and it's painful. And so finally maybe we get down to the weight that we want. And then what the research shows is the large majority of people will rebound their weight. It leads to yo-yo dieting, right? Where you lose all the weight, and then after your diet's done, you gain that plus the weight back. this doesn't work. Going on a diet, the research shows it doesn't fix our problem. And really what it can lead to is burnout. Because the thing is with diet culture, we typically rely on some kind of willpower. We will ourselves, like we don't really want to do it at the core of it, but we're relying on our willpower to be like, no, this is healthy for me. I'm going to do it. I'm going to stick to this diet. I'm going to stick to this workout plan. And so willpower is like a muscle and it fatigues after a period of time. And so what happens is we make this plan to go to the gym at the end of the day. But at the end of the day, we're so tired because we spent all day at work exercising our willpower by not yelling at our coworker. We spend our willpower forcing ourselves to do a project that we're not really into. We spend our willpower doing all these things all day. And then by 4:00, when it's time to go to the gym, the question is, do you have the willpower to go to the gym, or are you going to say yes to happy hour instead? And most of the time, when your willpower is tapped, you're going to choose what feels a little bit better. And so trying to use your willpower muscle over and over again will typically lead to some kind of burnout where we're like, I just can't. To use your willpower, if it's painful for you, and if it's painful for you, typically what will happen is we'll seek comfort in something. And if food is your comfort source, that's where you're going to go. The other thing is that diet culture relies on shame to try to bend people into having the bodies that society says they want. And that's kind of a problem too. I was driving by a sign the other day. It was Cheyenne weight loss. I live in Cheyenne, Wyoming, and it says from flab to fab, which is I think it's super shame-provoking, because the implication there is that if you have flab, quote unquote, like if you have extra weight on, you're not fab. And that's the root of it, is non-acceptance of the way that we are. If we look at it from a law of attraction point of view, it tends to make it harder to achieve our goals. We are putting out negative energy around our bodies, around our diet. We approach diet as this painful thing. We have to do it. And the whole time it's negative. And so yes, it can work for a period of time. Maybe we can, like, if we're really committed, we have like a wedding coming up or an event, and we're like, okay, I'm going to buckle down and make this happen. We can do it. But is it lasting? No. The answer is no, largely speaking. If it's a grueling process, what you want is you want to feel good about your body, but with every bite of celery, if you're thinking to yourself, I hate this. This is painful. This sucks. It's not going to last. The other thing is, when things are rooted in shame and negative energy, we tend to project any shame-provoking response. Anything that feels uncomfortable that we would rather not feel tends to, like I talked about last time, go into the shadows. And so when it goes into the shadows, we tend to project onto somebody else. Meaning, if I'm uncomfortable with my body image, instead of being like, okay, I'm going to get real about this and I'm going to uncover what this is, and this is going to be emotionally painful for me, not like physically painful. Eating celery when you don't really want to is physically painful. But if it's like emotionally painful, that's like the worst kind of pain of all. Feeling that you are not enough on the whole because of your weight is very shame-provoking. And so because that feeling of shame is awful, what we tend to do is we tend to ignore it. We would deny it. We would pretend that it doesn't exist. And so what we do is we see it in other people, but we can't see it in ourselves. This actually happened to me a lot, where I would go on a diet and I would tell everybody else about how their diet sucks, but then I couldn't look at mine. That's kind of two big reasons why diet culture that is rooted in shame absolutely doesn't work. And so I think that diet culture was big probably 5 or 10 years ago. And now it's kind of like this pendulum is kind of swinging to the opposite direction. Now, instead of saying, hey, you need to fix yourself, now we're saying, hey, you need to love all parts of your body. You need to love all parts of yourself. And that's really great. Intuitive eating says you should Allow yourself to eat whatever you want and ask yourself honestly, is this really what my body wants? And if it's a piece of cake, honestly, sometimes, yeah, it is, and you should eat it. And if you eat it, then eat it without guilt or remorse and just move on. And while I love that concept, I absolutely think that if you ask your body truly in every moment before you put something in your mouth, what do you need? What do you want? I do believe that you have the answers within you. I do believe that you make the right decisions. You make the decision that your body actually wants. But that requires incredible mindfulness. And I think that we all underestimate the amount of mindfulness that we are able to give ourselves in those moments where I'm like, do I want cake when I'm really hungry? Yeah, I do. Do I want celery when I'm really hungry? No, that's not going to satisfy my hunger. It requires us to be incredibly mindful. And when we add up all of the stuff going on in our lives, think about this. Most of us are tapped with how busy we are. And when we're like at a party and we're trying to catch up with people that we haven't seen in a long time, are you able to be mindful about your diet? That's a question maybe that's personal for you, but for me, the answer is no, I'm not. I'm not able to be mindful about my diet when I have all these things going on and I'm worried about asking grandma about her last trip and I'm worried about asking my aunt what's new in her life. That's difficult for me to be super mindful about what I'm eating at that time. It's way easier for me to eat mindlessly. Or if you have a lot going on at work, is it easy to be mindful when you're bombarded with emails? It's hard to be mindful about what you're eating then. It's hard to be mindful when you've got kids running around the house. I can think of 1,000 examples, and you know what it is for you, but that's the problem with intuitive eating, is that it requires us to be very, very mindful almost 100% of the time. And I don't know that many of us can say that we have that capacity in our packed schedule type of world. And so this idea of you need to love all parts of yourself perpetuates. I think I saw a post the other day that was like, what would happen if you just decided to love your body? And it was this girl, and she didn't have the Barbie body that our society loves. It was an average, I would say, body, which was great. The problem, though, with that post that I thought about, was like, what does that really mean, though? What does it mean to love my body? It just doesn't make any sense. Are you telling me that I have to love the size of my jeans? Are you telling me that I have to love the number that I see on the scale? And then what happens if I don't? What happens if, honestly, I get down to it and I'm like, I would like to be lighter. I would like to fit into my jeans that I fit into a year or two ago. And so I just talked about shame in our diet culture. And I think that the whole idea of loving all parts of your self can be shame-provoking as well. Because the problem is that now, if I believe that story that I have to love all parts of myself, if I don't, then I feel like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I love myself? Why can't I love all parts of myself? My cellulite, the size of my jeans. Why can't I accept myself in a bikini? The other thing about this is that I think that this whole idea of you have to love all parts of yourself, all parts of your body, etc., ignores this very fundamental truth that intolerance of the way things are is a powerful change agent. The way that we make change for the better, most often in any facet of life, is by saying, I'm not satisfied with the way that things are at this moment. I need something to change. We need better. It's because I'm not satisfied with my job that I go looking for something that's more aligned. It's by saying no that we find our yeses. And so in the same way, I think that we can look at our bodies and say, I'm not happy with this. I'm not happy with the way that things are. And then use that as rocket fuel to propel you to where you want to be with your health. Also, I think that loving all parts of yourselves starts way before the physical manifestations of your body. Loving all parts of yourself, accepting yourself unconditionally, starts at the moment that you're comfort eating. That's where it starts. Loving yourself means more about setting your health as a priority and packing a lunch instead of getting so hungry that you are stopping at McDonald's on the way. And I think that the most unhealthy thing here on both sides is trying to fit ourselves into the mold of being someone else, comparing ourselves with someone else. Any kind of shame-provoking response is an ego. That's an ego-based thing that maybe we need to take a closer look at and then heal instead of letting it run our lives. Does that make sense? So whether it's trying to fit ourselves into this mold of having a Barbie body and saying, okay, I need to follow this diet that's for sure going to make me lose weight and have that Barbie body, or whether it's I need to love myself unconditionally in all parts of myself and I'm not okay if I don't. All of those are ego stories. Those come from somebody else. And always my message is come back to yourself. What do you need? What's true for you? And so what I came to is like 3 things that I think that maybe we could all consider when it comes to loving your body. Like, what does that really mean? And so, like everything that I say, take what resonates, leave the rest, add on your own things. But these are just some things that I was pondering, things that I was considering that I think can help us all find the way to love ourselves and then consequently our bodies in the process. Okay, so the first thing is to have boundaries. I've talked about boundaries before and it's a huge part of my work. But the thing is that when you love any person, a family member, think of somebody you deeply love, you're going to have boundaries with them. The people that we love, we don't say, okay, I'm going to house you indefinitely and then you can eat my food and then I'm going to be able to be there for emotional support whenever you need me. That wouldn't make any sense. We can't do that because it leads us to overextension, exhaustion, and then eventually some kind of resentment. We set boundaries with the people that we love so that we can show up as our best versions of ourselves for them. If I didn't have boundaries for the people that I loved, I would be an exhausted mess because I'm trying to pour from an empty cup. That's what that leads to if I don't have boundaries. And so in the same way that we have boundaries with the people that we love, I think that we should have boundaries with our nutrition and our exercise and our health. Boundaries are where you arrive at your sacred yes and no. This is where I'm saying yes to myself. This is where I'm saying no to myself. And so put another way, maybe you could ask yourself, what are you prioritizing? Are you prioritizing your health? Are you prioritizing time for movement? Do you say, this is my non-negotiable time to move in whatever way feels good for me? There's a book called The Magic of Thinking Big. Oh man, I'm so blanking on the author, but he is the cartoonist for Dilbert. So what he does every day is he makes time to go to the gym no matter what. He brings everything, and after he's gotten dressed and puts his sneakers on, then if he needs to leave, he allows himself to leave. And so that's what I'm talking about boundaries. Do you need to set a precedence of I'm going to move for an hour a day? Or I'm going to set aside an hour a day to move. Or, is it an afterthought for you? If it's an afterthought, that's not really a boundary. That's not saying this is my hard time for prioritizing my health and the way that I move. What I'm saying, if it's an afterthought, is, well, it's not really that important. And so in the same way that we set boundaries for our exercise, I think that it's important to set boundaries for our nutrition and the food that we eat. And so maybe for you, that is going on a diet. Maybe for you, that is making a meal plan and saying, this is what I'm eating Monday through Friday, and I map out every single thing that I eat. Maybe it can take the form of, I don't allow certain foods into my house. That's what I'm talking about with boundaries. They can take the form of diets. They can take the form of exercise. It can take the form of mapping out time and space for all of these things. But it's really just setting your priorities. What is a priority for me? And if you need to write it out, if you need to just have a conversation with yourself, whatever you need to do, I like writing it out. I like making checklists because I'm a very visual person, but it doesn't need to be like that. It's really what works for you. And another thing that I want to say about boundaries is that Boundaries are something that you arrive at. No one else can give them to you. There's something that you say, this is where I'm okay with doing things. This is where I'm not okay with doing things. And what works for me may not work for you. And so this is why like diet is a form of boundaries, but it's not a one size fits all. What might be good for somebody's body is not good for another person's body, but it's up to you to find out what that thing is. Okay, so that's boundaries. The second thing that I think that we need to do is respect our bodies. We need to listen to our bodies as if you were listening to a loved one. And this is kind of tricky because sometimes when we listen to loved ones, right? Say a loved one comes to you and says, I have a problem. I need you to listen to me. What we tend to do is we tend to go into this, okay, I'm going to fix it. I'm going to try to help her, or I'm going to try to help him fix his problem, or I'm going to try to give you a mindset change. We tend to put ourselves in the shoes of them and say, okay, what would I do? We try to help them fix it. I think that that's just fixing. I don't think that that's real love, because real love means that you sit with them and you listen to them without your own agenda. That's showing somebody real love. You listen without agenda. And so when we apply this to our diets and to our bodies, we need to listen to our bodies without agenda. What tends to happen is we'll be like, oh, I saw this diet and for sure that's going to work. I'm sold on it. And so when our bodies are like, that diet doesn't feel good for me, we're like that person who's trying to fix things. And we try to fit our bodies into this mold of, what we're sold on. Instead, could we listen to our bodies of like, okay, what do you actually need? Is this not working for you? Respecting your body, listening to your body means that you give yourself the freedom to leave the gym if today you need rest instead of pushing through your workout. Respect means getting in tune with your body about what it really needs. And then like maybe, if it's a comfort eating kind of thing, we need to ask ourselves, where am I comfort eating? Like, why do I feel like that? Go 7 layers deep in that. That's what listening to your body is all about. And I want to say that comfort eating can even come in the form of boredom. I think that when we sit there and we listen to ourselves in those moments, instead of just like going with our compulsions, that's a form of self-love, isn't it? And so the way that these two kind of like interplay together is that boundaries give us the tools that we need when we can't be mindful all the time, while self-respect and self-love, listening to yourself, gives you the freedom to change in the moment where our boundaries aren't working for us. It might seem like a good idea on Sunday when I'm planning everything out and I'm frustrated with my body and I've just come off of like a binge cycle where I've eaten way too much. On Sunday, I might plan, okay, I'm going to work out 7 days a week and I'm only going to eat celery and I'm going to do all these things next week. But come Wednesday, my workouts have left me drained. I don't have energy and my body is asking for something different than celery. I need to have the ability to switch and change that in the moment. I need to be able to ask myself, my body, what does it need? And then go from there. Okay, the last thing that I have for you guys is to ask yourself, how do you want to feel about your body? And then start feeling that right now. Do you want to feel energetic? And then could you harness that energy right now? Do you want to feel freedom with your body? And then how can you feel that freedom right now? Do you want to feel healthy? And how can you feel healthy right now? Do you want to feel love for your body? And then can you drop into your heart and feel that right now? Can you feel gratitude for what your body has done for you? Can you focus your energy and attention on those things that you want to feel, even though maybe on the whole of it, you have to be honest with yourself about how you actually feel? But could you take a little moment of meditation, even if it's 5 minutes a day, and just focus on feeling how you want to feel? So yes, that is great for manifesting and kind of putting us on track to set our day up for success. But the other thing is that I think that asking ourselves how we want to feel goes back to asking ourselves, are our boundaries that we set for ourselves working for us? Because sometimes it's hard to know, is this a boundary that I set for myself, or is this a good idea that somebody set for me? And sometimes we get married to that concept of it has to work, and we stop asking, is it working? Is it actually working for us? And so when we feel what we want to feel, if we want to feel healthy, but the diet that we've been on, say I want to feel healthy, but I go on this paleo diet and I don't feel healthy, well, it allows me to like reevaluate, take a step back and say, okay, is something not working for me? If I've decided to meal prep and I'm doing all this meal prep, but it's bringing me more stress to meal prep than is worth it, then it allows me to take a step back and ask, is the juice worth the squeeze? Is it worth it? And do I need to do some readjustment? And it's this process of refining what we need to do. And that, I think, is really self-love for our body. It's just being present and coming back to ourselves and being honest and more honest and more honest about what we need and about where we're at and about how we can give ourselves the best. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this episode. If you are struggling with body image, just please know that you are not alone. If you feel like you're wrong for not being able to love all parts of your body, just know that you are not alone. If you feel like your diet's not working, please know that you are not alone. There are so many people that are struggling with this, like 90% of our population. It is not an easy thing. It's not okay to shame anybody into any version of you need to love yourself or you need to do this in order to love yourself. We need to have the freedom to be honest about this kind of stuff. And if I can help in any way make that happen, it's better. It's good for everybody. It really is. Thank you for the bottom of my heart for joining me today, and I cannot wait to see you next time. If you enjoyed this episode, I would invite you to subscribe, share it with someone you know, and leave an honest rating or review. You can also connect with me through Instagram at spiritmind.body, through YouTube or my website. Links to all of these can be found in the show notes below. This work is not easy and requires tremendous self-reflection, grit, and a willingness to be misunderstood, and for that, I honor every single one of you for showing up for your authentic self. Until next time.